All right. The Body of Christopher Creed, Chapter 4. Let's get into it. On Monday, the third period honors chemistry teacher was sick, and there was no substitute. That meant Alex and I could go to the cafeteria and stay there right through fourth period lunch. Leandra had third period lunch, so we could hang with her. Life was good, until I saw Mrs. Creed. She was in school hanging these missing posters on all the bulletin boards and taping them to walls in all the corridors. We saw sight of her taping one on the wall just outside the cafeteria. She was pressing the paper against the wall so hard, it was turning her fingers purple. And she stood up and smacked her fingers against her legs, like, to get the blood flowing again. The poster had a picture of Chris scanned from the freshman yearbook, plus all this information like day last seen on it. It also had height, 5'8", weight 135, hair color blonde, eye color brown. Hey, Tori, I heard a girl's voice and felt a slight tug on my varsity sweater. I turned, and Allie McDermott was standing behind me, grinning, all friendly. Allie had been a friend of ours since kindergarten. She lived on Creed Street. Last year, she started to drift a little. Didn't hang out with us as much. All I knew was that she didn't show up at as many parties and at dances. She would hang with us for about 10 minutes and then circle around and talk to lots of other people. I guessed that was okay, except rumor had it that Allie was, as the saying goes, passing through high school on her back. A lot of the guys on the football team claimed to have been with her. It gets a little harder being around a girl like that once you've had a girlfriend, and I hadn't hung out with her much since the spring when I started going out with Leandra. Hey, I said, no chemistry. Cool, huh? Yeah, cool. I watched Alex wave to Renee Bowen ahead of us and move up to walk with her. I sighed, thinking, there goes another band practice tonight. Renee was Ryan's sister and Leandra's best friend. About 3 weeks earlier, she had started getting Alex to hang out in front of the Wawa with her at night, and he would just not show for band practice. I had gone out with Renee in 8th grade, and we stayed friends afterwards, but at this point she was starting to bug me. I sighed again and turned my thoughts to Allie. I wanted to ask her if she knew anything about Creed, but didn't want to sound like a gossip hag. I don't remember ever hearing her say too much awful stuff about Chris growing up, though she could roll her eyes a lot. Allie was nice like that. Mrs. Creed's all hanging her posters. I said finally, no arguing that. She just rolled her eyes, the usual. I tried again. Everybody's wondering what's up with him. You know, I really don't want to talk about it. She snapped. I thought that was pretty saintly of her and felt embarrassed. And then I thought, wait a minute. I'm not running around school all where's the body like half the fools are. Allie, I'm not out looking for bad stuff to spread around about Creed. Maybe I just want to understand the thing. She cast me a sideways glance, like maybe she was sorry. Well, you're in the minority, she muttered. You should hear the stuff people have been asking me. Has he got any poison in that chemistry set of his? Did you hear anything strange coming from his place last week, like gunshots? People who can't even stand me have been coming up to me all morning. Who can't stand you? I asked, confused. Yeah, guys joked about her sex life, but there's a difference between saying a girl is easy and saying you hate her. Nobody said that. Everybody, she muttered, with her eyebrows all scrunched together. You were imagining it, I told her. Her parents had split up over summer. I wonder if it was stressing her. I'm not imagining it, she sighed. I'm not like you guys anymore. You all have perfect lives, and when something happens, like a suffering kid turns up missing, it's like the joke of the century, because your lives are perfect. I guessed I would be pretty freaked out if my parents split, but she didn't have to take it all out on me. Well, thanks a lot for clumping me in with all the buttheads, I muttered. You're being really judgmental of me, especially considering how you hate it when you think people are being judgmental of you. I was ready to break away from her. She grabbed me by the elbow and hurried to walk along beside me. She sighed. I'm just in a foul mood for playing the butt end of 20 questions all morning. I'm sorry, okay? Whatever. I looked around the cafeteria for Leandra. Allie kept pulling my arm, and when I looked, she was searching my face. Don't let's go in here. Let's go somewhere else. I want to tell you about Mrs. Creed. It's the unwritten rule that if you have off the same period as your girlfriend, you find her in the cafeteria and spend the period with her. I followed Allie out again, but glanced nervously around to see who had spotted me and might tell Leandra they saw me leaving with Allie McDermott. It sounded like Allie really needed to spill. I trailed her down the long hallway until we hit the stairwell. There was an emergency exit, and I sucked in my breath as Allie put her hand on the bar and pushed. Emergency alarm hasn't worked since the first week of school. Don't tell anyone, okay? This is my great escape, where no hall protectors can see. We stepped out into the sunlight. You could see straight across the lawn to the edge of the woods. It was a calm, pretty sight, and I could see why she wanted to come out here sometimes. I heard a match light, and when I turned, she was huffing on a cigarette. When did you start smoking? I asked, surprised. She just shrugged, like she wasn't interested in talking about that. Don't tell, I'll get kicked off cheerleading if Miss Gibson finds out. I nodded, looking her up and down, noticing little things for the first time about how Allie was changing. She used to put her hair up and all those girly doodads like the other cheerleaders, but now she just let it hang. It fell in little strands around her shoulders, almost straight, but not quite. She was real cute still, just not all dolled up the way the other cheerleaders were, and she wore army boots with her short skirt. Lots of other girls wore hiking boots or army boots, but the cheerleaders didn't seem to wear anything clunky. She was starting to look like somebody else, like one of the techies or the artists or something. Like she didn't relate to the girls she had always hung with anymore. I watched her blow smoke in a stream, like some sort of a pro, and felt bad that she had obviously changed a lot. Almost right under my nose, and I hadn't noticed. So what's up, Allie? I just feel things, she said, staring at the woods. I don't have any proof. I don't want to tell just anybody, because they'll use it to hurt Chris. Spread mean things about him? I waited, seeing her take a long drag off the cigarette. She said, so you can't tell anyone? I won't. I think Chris snapped. I think he flipped out from a combo of everything. School, being lonely, but mostly because of his parents. You talked to him, I asked? Yeah, I talked to him sometimes, she shrugged. As much as you can talk to a kid who grabs onto you like a magnet if you so much smile at him. Mostly he talked. I listened. I was afraid to say anything back very often because one time in 8th grade I told him a bunch of garbage about my family. I don't know what came over me. He was there, out on his lawn, and I was like in desperate need of someone to talk to. I waved. That was all he needed. He came over, and after I dumped on him, he informs me the next day that he's all into Eastern religions. Reincarnation and all that stuff. He told me I was his long-lost brother from a past life. Despite the disgusted tone, her cute little grin crept across her face. That was one thing about Allie. You could take away her hair doodads, all that cheerleader makeup, and dangle a cigarette from her mouth, and that cute little grin was still the best. Not his long-lost sister? I smirked. No, his brother. Even a weirdo would settle on being your friend if you acted like a friend. Him, if you acted friendly to him, you were his long-lost brother from a past life. I wondered what bothered Allie so much that she would dump on Creed. Her parents split up, but they both seemed okay to me. Her dad owned a restaurant, and her mom had helped out a lot. They did their share of driving Allie and her little brother to sports and school stuff. They helped out at PTA and threw Allie great birthday parties. I just figured they didn't get along. I wondered why she felt she couldn't dump on Alex or me or Renee or Ryan, whatever it was. I figured if I asked her, I would get the same ice over as when I asked her about smoking. Did he tell you bad stuff about his parents? I asked instead. No, she said. I don't think he really understood that it was bad. It was mostly small talk, I'm renting a movie tonight with my dad, or my mom's taking me to the mall when I get home. Who could stand to rent a movie with their dad? Like, what movie could you agree on with your dad? And who goes to the mall with their mom? She shrugged like it wasn't that big a deal, but I could see where she was going. My mom gives me the money so I can go with you guys, I said. Exactly. His family's so up his butt. She shivered. I think that if Chris's family was, totally off their gourd, he would be able to see it, to say, wow, these people are totally abnormal, and therefore my life is not my fault. But it never got that weird, just chronically slightly weird. Just enough to keep the kid off balance, make him stress, make him, weird, but not insane. I tried to picture this. You're making it sound like it's more dangerous to have a slightly weird family than a totally weird family. Interesting thought, but I didn't know if I believed it. It's mostly the stuff I saw. I have a great view of their window from my bedroom. She shuffled around a little, like she wasn't comfortable with looking, but she had done it anyway. You know how your room can get to be a complete disaster if you don't pick up for 2 or 3 days? Yeah. My mom turns into a hag at that point, I admitted. Well, Chris's room was always neat as a pin, Allie went on. His mom goes in there like regiment cleans it, as if she's running the Air Force in there. She folds his clothes in the drawers a certain way, pulls out anything from under the bed, takes things off the closet shelf and refolds them, dusts in the corners. I've seen her do it, like when I'm homesick from school. What's wrong with this picture? I was catching on a little quicker by this point. I would kill my mom for being in my stuff like that. Yeah, the kid had no privacy. Sounds like the type of mom who would, read your diary. She nodded quickly. I think he even had one. He used to hide some little book inside the back of this picture frame on his wall. Can you believe that? I guess he didn't feel he could stuff it between his mattresses like most kids. He ever mention it to you? She shook her head. He just seemed to accept everything. He never said anything about it, but I'm pretty sure it was a diary because he pulled it out a few nights a week last summer. After he was in bed, he would lie there on his side and write things down in it. Then he would put it back behind the picture frame and go to sleep. Sounds like a diary, I muttered. But I was thinking of something else. How come you see all this? You sound like a peeping Tom. Her face got hard again. She said, let's just say I spend a lot of time in my room, okay? Whatever. I watched her, wishing she would tell me about herself rather than Chris. Truth. I was getting as worried about hers as I was about him. Excuse me. There seemed to be so much stuff going on. There seemed to be so much stuff she would lay hints about but not say. But she just kept on going. And here's another one. He was very modest. I remember a bunch of times Renee slept over in 8th grade, and when we were looking out the bedroom window, we would see him come into his bedroom in only a towel. Now, how many kids would think to lower the shade just before they let go of the towel? Would you think to do that? Our house was on 3 acres, so I didn't worry about neighbors seeing that far, but I think I would have stood over toward the corner just long enough to throw on my gym trunks. She was grinning and I smiled. Well, he never forgot. She said it was like a ritual. He would come in his towel, he would lower the shade, he would put on pajamas, he would raise the shade. In 8th grade, Renee and I almost made it a Friday night game to see if we would catch him in the buff. And how about this? You know how you can see people's silhouettes when the shade is down? I nodded. One time this year, he lowers the shade, and I see another silhouette come into the room. The silhouette puts a stack of laundry in the drawers, then gets in a conversation with him. They exchange 3 lines, and the silhouette leaves. He pulls the shade up 10 seconds later, and he's in his pajamas. Ew, shit, I breathed. That one was kind of nasty. His mom walks in on him when he's butt naked, and he looks like he just accepts it. I would have been pissed. Your mom would have knocked, she said. I watched Allie, thinking she had some kind of hawk eye. I think I would have lived across the street from Creed for years and years and never noticed anything except that he was weird. At any rate, I hate that woman, Allie said. I would love to prove that I only saw the tip of some enormous iceberg. Maybe she beat him, or worse things. Like what? The look she passed me turned my blood cold. Some annoyed, are you stupid and don't ask questions look. Like the one she cast me in the hall when I first asked about Mrs. Creed. She was thinking something gross. That's all I knew. I went on finally. If Mrs. Creed caused this, she doesn't understand or doesn't want to. You should have seen her in church yesterday, appealing to the people for any reason that Chris might have run away. Like she's so innocent. Allie laughed in disgust. She's not that dumb. She knows she's guilty. It struck me that Mrs. Creed must have seen the note. The cops wouldn't keep it from her. It was full of stuff about his parents being too strict. Yet she gave her little speech in church on Sunday. She had looked so sincere, asking if anyone knew any reason why Chris would run away. I couldn't understand how the woman could see that note and be able to push the idea out of her head that she was at least partly responsible. I decided to trust Allie. I've seen the note, I said quietly. Her eyes rose to mine. She said, yeah, me too. Really? How did you see it? She pulled another cigarette out of her blouse pocket and lit it. She didn't answer me. She just stared into the woods, looking sad. She hung with all sorts of different people these days, and I didn't even take a stab at who she did different things with. But I guess maybe we weren't the only people hacking into the school's email. Parents can be vicious. Don't kid yourself, she murmured. Just because you live in Steepleton. Just because you have the perfect life. Look, I squirmed around, not wanting to get on that sore subject again. I don't have a perfect life. And whatever it is that's bothering you lately, I wish you could just tell me instead of taking it out on me. She looked at me like she was sorry, maybe, but then her eyes hardened. You wouldn't understand. Thanks a lot. Maybe I did have the perfect life next to hers. I didn't have a clue. But I couldn't get past this feeling that she really wanted to tell me what had come down on her. She was leaving these bloody little hints all over the place. It was almost like she was using Mrs. Creed to show me how bad her own life could get. She drew up, half her grin again, and let out an awkward laugh. If people wouldn't take it all wrong, I'd ask you to come over some night this week, and we could have a powwow and spy out the window. Well, why would people take that wrong? I muttered. But I knew what she meant. Allie had this slut thing hanging over her head. It could look really bad because of Leandra, but I figured Allie needed me. I have to go talk to Leandra now, I said, staring down at my sneakers. Then I sighed. So, what night? Tomorrow night would be cool. Besides, my boyfriend is coming over tomorrow night. So no one will suspect you and me of doing the slut routine with my boyfriend there. My reputation's not that gross. Yet. She grinned at me triumphantly, and I tried to laugh. It didn't really strike me that she said she had a boyfriend. I didn't even know she had gotten one steady person, and I was kind of shocked at her remark about her reputation, like she knew and wasn't letting it bother her. I'll come over after dinner, I said, and just shuffled out of there, moving back toward the cafeteria in a haze. She didn't follow me. That concludes Chapter 4 of The Body of Christopher Creed. Thanks for listening.